So.
Well, NORAD was just saying he's flying all around the world. Just stop in here at Fox and Friends, Santa.
Stop in and say hi to everyone. So we're going to get to him in a few moments, but we've got a big show this morning.
That's right.
Got a lot to get to. Starting with this news that we opened up the show with. President Obama turning his back on Israel.
That's right. The U.S. breaking decades-old policy by not protecting Israel, not vetoing a UN resolution refusing to recognize Israeli settlements.
Lauren Blanchard is live from Washington, D.C. with more on what the decision means. Good morning, Lauren.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, yesterday the Obama administration abstained from a UN Security Council vote allowing what some call an anti-Israel resolution to pass 14-0. The U.S. has historically used its veto power to stop the UN in similar resolutions against Israel. Their Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in a statement, the Obama administration not only failed to protect Israel against this gang-up at the UN, it colluded with it behind the scenes. The president's administration has become increasingly critical of Israel's settlements in disputed Palestinian territory. The decision is getting support from some human rights groups. UN Ambassador Samantha Powers did concede the UN has targeted Israel in the past resolutions, but said abstaining from the vote was in line with the president's policy and his belief that settlements harm peace talks.
The United States has been sending the message that the settlements must stop privately and publicly for nearly 5 decades. One cannot simultaneously champion expanding Israeli settlements and champion a viable two-state solution that would end the conflict. One has to make a choice between settlements and separation.
On Capitol Hill, President Obama receiving backlash from Republicans and some Democrats. House Speaker Paul Ryan calling the vote shameful and saying a unified Republican government will work to rebuild relations with Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu also said he looks forward to working with President-elect Donald Trump. Abby, Ed, Peter.
Thanks, Lauren Blanchard. Live in Washington. Appreciate it. Wow.
Ed, help break this down, because obviously there are people that are up in arms. We had Governor Mike Huckabee on this morning, and he was furious about what happened in this vote yesterday, saying this is basically President Obama giving a huge middle finger
and
to
Congressman
Israel.
Lee Zeldin was on the couch last hour, going so far as to say this was an anti-Semitic resolution, and that this is opening the door to ethnic cleansing. I mean, that's what he said. That the stakes are enormous.
But you start to wonder how much of this is a shot at Israel and how much of it is a shot at Donald Trump, because Netanyahu and Trump were working together. They were doing this PR campaign for the last few days. The United States should use their veto power to knock this resolution down because it's bad for Israel. And the White House knew all about that.
Right.
And they did nothing. So they know that they are leaving kind of a mess for the next president. President Obama, Samantha Power, Ben Rhodes, they all know that they are leaving a mess for the next president, and you wonder how much of that was on purpose.
No, you make a great point, because the question here now is what happens, and can this deal be changed anyway? And Charles Krauthammer was on last night. I always listen carefully to what he says, because usually he's so thoughtful about these moments. And he said, I don't know if we have that sound. I'm going to read it to you. He says, we do have that sound with Charles Krauthammer. Let's play what he said last night.
The guy's got 8 years to enact his agenda. He twice wins, so he's got 2 mandates. And yet at the very last minute, when he's lost his legitimacy, when he's a lame duck, he leaves last-minute landmines behind, things he could never have done when he was still an active politician, in the sense that he had to protect himself or the party. He shuts down the Arctic and the Atlantic for oil and gas drilling, exploration. Then he stabs Israel in the back just as a coda. So I give him the lump of coal.
Wow. So he says, stabbing Israel in the back. Huckabee is saying that, basically giving him the middle finger. But what he said there that I thought was so poignant was leaving these huge landmines for the incoming administration to have to fill.
And what's important is what's next. And Donald Trump immediately went on Twitter, and it was short and sweet, and said, as to the UN, things will be different after January 20th, because you hear from the White House, the current White House, one president at a time. So I read from that tweet, fine. It's one sentence. One president at a time, but come January 20th, this is going to be turned around.
But until then, what needs to be different? Until then, this could be a major security problem for Israel, because they have people all around them in the Middle East who just saw that their best friend, the United States, isn't so friendly anymore. So if you're Iran, and you see that the U.S. does not have Israel's back on this, what are you thinking?
Well, sure, and you've got the only democracy basically in the Middle East, our key ally. And meanwhile, what's the UN doing, on the other hand, to stop the slaughter in Syria? Where's their focus on that? And I think that's also what President-elect Trump is getting at, which is these ridiculous shots at Israel. What about actual substantive efforts to stop the carnage?
And what does the focus need to be? And who do we need to rely on in that region to help us with places like Syria with terrorism right now? That's the question.
Right, and you've got Ted Cruz saying let's defund the UN. You've got Lindsey Graham, very reasonable Republican who has not always been Donald Trump's best friend, but saying, wait a second, maybe we've got to take money away from the UN. And I would also note the Daily News, which was against Donald Trump at every turn. Obama shafts Israel. Chuck Schumer, the Democratic Senate Majority Leader, incoming Senate Minority Leader, I should say. They don't have the majority.
Sounds like he's ready for
all
Trump.
of those Democrats right there, including Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Yeah, you have Senator Ron Wyden, Joe Manchin, Senator Richard Blumenthal, Senator Chris Coons, and as you mentioned, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. These are folks that didn't necessarily speak out in years past when President Obama was in office, but now it's like there's a new chapter starting here. And we can voice our frustration because this isn't something that we want to get behind.
And remember, when President Obama was campaigning, he needed a lot of pro-Israel support. So we didn't hear any of this from him. But another big part of the Obama campaign, especially in 2008, was we're going to go and talk to Iran. We're going to go talk to North Korea and Cuba, all of these enemies. Look what he does. You know, when you're spending that much time with the enemies, what about our friends? And if you're Israel, you know, with friends like us, who needs enemies? Because, man, they're by themselves, at least for another couple weeks.
Right. Well, and remember that scene at the Democratic Convention? I was there in Charlotte in 2012 about the fight over language and the platform about whether or not to move the U.S. Embassy in Israel. We've got it.
All those delegates opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 have voted in the affirmative. The motion is adopted, and the platform has been amended as shown on the screen.
I remember that was a moment where Democrats were embarrassed by how all that played out. And look, it has been, in fairness to President Obama, longstanding U.S. policy under Republican and Democratic presidents to be speaking out against these Israeli settlements. However, it's also been longstanding U.S. policy to veto these kinds of resolutions that slam Israel because the U.S. is often Israel's only ally before the Security Council.
And that's why this is so important. You made a really interesting point, Ed, earlier in the show, just about how political this move might have been coming from President Obama. Had Hillary Clinton been this next president coming in, you said that he wouldn't have made this move. I found that really interesting.
Yeah, well, because we abstained also. It's like President Obama, it's sort of Back to the Future. Remember how he voted present over 100 times as a state senator in Illinois? We voted to abstain. We didn't even take a real position, but by abstaining, that allowed this shot at Israel to go through. If Hillary Clinton had been elected, do you really think President Obama would have done this to Israel?
He didn't want to leave the landmines for her.
And something else interesting to think about, you know, President Obama and President-elect Trump are apparently talking on the phone all the time when stuff pops up. I would like to know how that next phone call is going to go.
On the wall there.
Well, or if there is going to be another phone call.
President-elect Trump has been going out of his way. He defended Michelle Obama the other day after that comment that she made about there being no hope to Oprah Winfrey. And Donald Trump said, look, come on, they've been nice to me. Let's move forward. And then President Obama does this.
And, you know, and President Obama's Deputy National Security Advisor, Ben Rhodes, is out there saying to everything that Mr. Trump is suggesting, well, there's only one president at a time. You wonder how much of that is just because Donald Trump is getting all the attention right now. Barack Obama getting very little attention unless he does something like this.
Yeah, Israel came to Donald Trump and said, help us. So it's not like he inserted himself. But anyway, we've got a lot of other headlines.
This may just be the beginning of this conversation. We do have some other headlines, though, to get to this morning, starting with a Fox News alert and a sad one here, an outpouring of support for actress Carrie Fisher, best known as Princess Leia in Star Wars, after suffering a cardiac event on an LA-bound flight.
Somebody has to save our skins.
Fisher's family saying that the 60-year-old star is in intensive care at an LA hospital. Friends and co-stars, they're reacting to the sad news. Director Kevin Smith, who has worked with Fisher, tweeting this: I don't pray much anymore, but I'm praying for you right now, Carrie Fisher. Please pull through. Hoping the best for her. And there's this, a homegrown terrorist arrested after pledging his support to ISIS. Derek Thompson, you can see him there, reportedly trying to buy a gun and even discussing plans to carrying out a lone wolf attack in Arizona. Phoenix authorities saying they've been watching 30-year-old Thompson for over 2 years now, and documents show he even researched midnight mass and which guns were most powerful. And President-elect Donald Trump's making more great deals, this time taking aim at Lockheed Martin after demanding that the company cut costs for a new F-35. The CEO now has plans to do just that, saying this: "I know that President-elect Trump wants the very best capability for our military at the lowest cost for taxpayers, and we are ready to deliver." Well, Mr. Trump already negotiating a lower price tag with Boeing for a new Air Force One. And the New York City Rockettes can opt out of the inauguration performance for President-elect Donald Trump. Madison Square Garden Company and the Dancers Union squashing rumors about the performers being forced to dance or risk losing their jobs. And this after one Rockette said she was, quote, embarrassed and disappointed to perform for Mr. Trump.
Oh, boy.
That's a sad state of affairs.
Yeah.
You know?
Even the Rockettes.
All right, now this, the mainstream media going nuclear over the president-elect's tweets.
Trump this morning is sparking fears of a new nuclear arms race with just 140 characters.
Making policy over Twitter is hugely disruptive.
But Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters says the media needs to relax. He's on deck.
Plus, elect Donald Trump has a newly minted press secretary, Sean Spicer, who's already delivering his boss's message to the world.
I think countries need to know that under a Donald Trump presidency, business as usual is over. He's going to act. He's going to protect America. And if they increase their nuclear capability, America will act.
And speaking of business as usual, the president-elect didn't just buck nuclear policy. He also called out Lockheed Martin earlier this week over the, quote, tremendous cost of the F-35 fighter jet program. And the company is now responding, promising to lower the cost. Joining us now to react is Brad Thomas, editor of the Forbes Real Estate Investor. He's also the author of The Trump Factor, Unlocking the Secrets Behind the Trump Empire. So first, good morning and Merry Christmas, and thanks for coming in. Let's talk big picture about what is the Trump Factor. What is it about his negotiating style that seems to be working early on?
Sure. Well, first off, let's remember, Donald Trump was a developer. He's the first president of the United States who has ran on a business ticket. So his experience as a real estate developer really boils down to one thing. He's learned how to value engineer his real estate empire, his multi-billion-dollar empire, into very high-quality properties throughout the world. So it really, again, boils down to how he's been able to value engineer his real estate portfolio and taking that skill set, that DNA, over to the White House.
Now, you say great negotiating style. On the other hand, isn't some of this kind of obvious, and just other presidents in both parties maybe have not pushed hard enough? Because in the case of Lockheed Martin, they're now saying, oh, we want to, save taxpayer money. We're going to make sure costs are held down. Isn't that what they've supposed to have been doing all along? They were just spending the taxpayers' money, our viewers, their hard work, their hard-earned tax money, just frivolously spending it. And now Donald Trump is finally saying, wait a second, rein it in.
Sure, Donald Trump's a tough negotiator. He knows how to manage risk. I mean, this guy has gone through decades of risk management in the investing world. Now translate that over to politics today, and how he's been able to go through and cut costs for everything. I mean, I think we're starting to see that now with Boeing was a good example. And you're going to see exactly, and you see company after company after company. So Donald Trump will go and look at every line item and every cost. And we've never seen a president who's done that. I mean, this is the first.
Right. But let's look at another tweet on nuclear issues. He wrote, the United States must greatly strengthen and expand its nuclear capability until such time as the world comes to its senses regarding nukes. My question on this is, okay, on the business side, I get where Boeing and Lockheed Martin, the carrier deal, some of that may work out. But what about the negotiating style when you're talking about nuclear weapons? Can't that backfire? This is serious policy to be dealing with in 140 characters.
Again, part of that risk management that we've seen with Donald Trump over the years, again, in the development world, translate that to the White House. He's been able to hire just like he did in development, high-quality engineers, architects, surveyors. Now we're seeing Carl Icahn. We're seeing the CEO of Walt Disney, the CEO of IBM, the CEO of Blackstock, the CEO of Blackstone. So you're seeing Donald Trump, build a team. He's building a foundation, just like when he built Trump Tower out of concrete, by the way. It's not steel. He built the best qualities. He's taken that same skill set over to the White House.
Well, Brad Thomas would know, author of The Trump Factor. Merry Christmas. You brought your family in. We got to see him in the green room.
I did.
Hope you have a good
Merry Christmas. Thank you very much.
Meanwhile, one school named after a president just made a head-scratching
sign of letting up. 77% view the country as a dysfunctional family, while only 18% see it as a tight-knit family.
So how do you handle the tension during Christmas time? The author of Disconnected, psychotherapist Tom Kersting joins us at the table right now. Merry Christmas Eve, sir.
Merry Christmas Eve to you guys. Thanks for having me.
Let's start with a lot of people are going to be taking flights today and tomorrow and the week to come. How do you avoid what happened to Ivanka Trump? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you have to have some personal regulation as a human being, okay? So like the individual...
That's a good point.
Right?
This individual that was on this flight, I mean, it's unbelievable that somebody would do that to
And he was holding his own child.
Yeah, but
and not even showing civility to his own children.
But here's what I take of it, all right? So you don't hear anything coming out of Ivanka Trump's mouth about this, all right? She's not out there throwing out a tweet storm. And that represents the kind of person that she is, a person that has emotional regulation, that has self-control. I think it's a reflection of her dad and how he raised her.
When stuff like this happens, though, how much of it is just a last-second emotional outburst? This guy sees, we know that in this case it was premeditated, but when somebody comes home for Christmas, how much of it is it that they see the aunt or uncle that they disagree with? Or how much of it is like this guy where they're just building up, oh, I know that she voted for Trump or she voted for Sanders and I'm going to give her a piece of my mind. Which causes more problems?
Well, I think there was premeditation there because they saw her getting on this flight beforehand. So I think this gave this guy an opportunity to percolate emotionally in a negative way and now take all of his frustrations out in front of an entire plane filled with people and his own child with him.
And when you're traveling, you're already probably frustrated about the wait time and it's crowded and the seats are small. So go in, as you're saying, just with a mindset of being a graceful, classy person.
Just tune into yourself and relax.
Especially when you're sitting down at the dinner table. I mean, we've been talking about our family and our traditions, and a lot of people are sitting down with a big family, a lot of different personalities, a lot of different backgrounds and political affiliations. Do you say avoid it altogether? How do you handle that?
Well, I think we have to remember, number one, that we're adults and that we should be able to have conversations with other adults. And if they disagree with us, that's an opportunity for us to learn how to handle our emotions in the face of disagreement. Sure. And also that what is tomorrow? Tomorrow's Christmas. So for all the Christians out there, that represents Christ, the day that Christ was born. And what did Jesus Christ represent? He represented peace and love and caring for other people, not hostility and anger. So maybe we need to kind of remember that on the day.
Yeah. But is it really realistic to think that people, that part I get, but is it realistic for people to sit down Christmas dinner and not talk politics after this election?
Yeah,
it's going to come up.
That's a little ambitious, I would say. So, again,
so how do you handle it then? It's going to come up.
You're going to have the crazy uncle or the grandma in the corner that says, I think this or that, and it just happens.
I think you pull like what boxers do. You go into the bathroom, you look yourself in the mirror, you psych yourself out in a positive way where you tell yourself, I'm going to make sure that I'm in control of myself. I'm not going to lose my cool. I'm an adult. It's okay if somebody disagrees with me.
Yeah. You've been doing this a long time. Are there generally more arguments at Christmas or at Thanksgiving or with your family after a Democrat one or after a Republican one? Because it seems like, you go on BuzzFeed or these websites, it's like, 10 things to say to your crazy Republican uncle. You never see anything about how to talk to somebody who might be a Democrat?
Right. I mean, I think the outward anger or frustration that's coming is really coming more from the Democrats, in my opinion. I mean, I remember, 8 years ago when Obama won, I don't remember hearing Republicans accosting people on airplanes and letting people have it. I mean,
there's never been a Tea Party person, as Peter was saying in a segment earlier, there hasn't been a Tea Party person who went after Michelle Obama and her kids. Yeah. If there had been,
we'd still be talking about it.
We'd still be talking about it today.
Oh, we would.
Yeah, exactly. Wait, I'm being told, do we have that video of the argument at the Ducey household last Christmas? Oh, I'm kidding. No. We don't have that video.
But you know what, I represent a lot of families, I think, where you have members that don't always agree on politics. So you are going to have arguments, and things might get a little bit out of control. And oftentimes in my family, someone will just get up from the table and walk out. Yeah. How do you avoid that situation? How do you bring it down back to reality?
I think removing yourself, if you're in an emotional frenzy at the moment, remove yourself from the equation, gather yourself, gather your emotions, and then come back in and remember that you are an adult that is supposed to be responsible. And there's probably going to be children there. So you want to model good behavior for them as well, you know?
Or just pull Home Alone. Look what you did, you little jerk.
I like how he handled that.
Well, it's great having you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for being here. All right, Democrats are still sobbing after losing the election, so instead of the inauguration, they want to throw a pity party. Wait until you hear who they invited to that party.
Growth spurt? Yeah, growth spurt.
You know, we've been getting this video that a source close to the Ducey family gave to us earlier today.
High-ranking source.
They've now given us another video of you reacting to getting a very special gift.
Let's play this.
Let's see.
This is, you know what's so funny is he did the same thing this morning when he walked in to go to Hair and Meghan. He was so excited to host Fox and Friends this morning.
It's like a scene from Home Alone. It's like,
so good.
No, in Home Alone, the guy was always screaming because he was scared. I scream like that when I'm
What did you get, a bicycle?
What
was it?
I don't know.
You don't even remember?
It was something probably that I still use today.
Well, we're going to have to ask your dad. I mean, we're going to have to ask the source who gave us the video.
But that reaction is so wrong, so
We've been
real.
asking our viewers who want you to engage as well. What are some of your great traditions? Sherry emailed, we always eat pizza for Christmas dinner. It started when our children were very young, and I didn't want to be stuck in the kitchen cooking all morning, missing all the fun. They love pizza, and it continues today with our grandchildren.
I love
That's
that because
great.
we had Governor Huckabee on who says they do Chinese food for
in
Christmas
Arkansas,
Eve.
no
In
less.
Arkansas, who knew? This is Jane on Facebook, says, my family will be helping prepare meals at our local 911 center for all first responders working this evening. Then we will come home and carry on our family tradition of opening Christmas ornaments and, of course, our pajamas. I love that.
Yeah, Richard on Twitter, as cold as Christmas is, we set out peppermint schnapps and cheese for Santa.
Ooh.
And also, I do have an update about what I was screaming at.
Oh, so you
That
know.
quickly.
It was an air hockey table.
Oh, that's fun.
And we do still have the air hockey table in the basement in New Jersey.
That makes sense, though. I would be just excited about
And I
that.
scream every time I see it.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. That video, though. Can we keep playing that like every half an hour on the show of Peter Ducey reacting to
I think we should do it at the top of the hour. Like, you know.
People will be very alarmed. What happened?
This is great. All right, well, we do have some other headlines to get to this morning, and this one is a Fox News alert. We'll start with this. ISIS calling on its followers to attack churches as millions of Americans prepare to head out to Christmas Mass. Federal authorities on alert after pro-ISIS websites publishing a list of churches and pastors in the United States. Father Jonathan Morris addressed the concerns that the priest faced earlier on the show. Here's what he said.
You're a target. You know, you're a target for people who are maybe crazed, but you're also a target, in this case, of people who say we have an ideology of hate, and it has to do with our, quote, religious beliefs.
Officials saying there are no credible threats, but sent the warning out of abundance.
Yeah, well, all right. It's not an air hockey table. That's
true.
It's not as cool.
We're going to keep playing that throughout the entire show. I love it. Rick Reitmuth is outside with the weather update. Rick,
yeah, and then one of those bags was taken right to the IRS.
Right.
One goes away. Sorry. So sorry. All right, guys, let's talk a little weather. It is not that bad of a day, really. People hoping for a white Christmas. This is where there is snow on the ground right now, and this is where there will be snow on the ground tomorrow. We're going to see a big snow melt across especially Kansas, where temps are going to warm up into the 60s for tomorrow. North of that, still a little bit colder, and we're going to see some snow across the mountains of Arizona and in towards Nevada as well. Here's your forecast for the day today. Pick out your city. We'll put the map in motion and see how this goes. We have this one storm moving through, bringing some rain. We'll clear up by the end of the day. And behind that, temps not really that cold. So Sunday, Christmas Day, is going to be pretty nice. Down to the southeast, we start out with some showers. By the afternoon, we see a little bit more clearing and temps warming up as well. Pretty nice. And towards the northern plains, not that bad of a day. Temps certainly warmer than where we were. We'll see plenty of cloud cover, but temperature-wise, we're okay. Tomorrow is your snowy and stormy day. And finally, out across the west, this is where all the action is. Most of it in across parts of Arizona and in towards Utah, where we'll see some spots over a foot of snow. Good news if you planned a skiing Christmas trip, which sounds like a lot of fun. All right, guys, back to you inside.
Yeah, that sounds fabulous. Skiing
Thanks,
out in
Rick.
Utah. Thank you, Rick.
So President Obama, we've been talking about this all morning, turning his back on Israel and breaking decades-old policy, but not vetoing a UN resolution condemning controversial Israeli settlements in disputed Palestinian territory. New York Congressman Lee Zeldin is here now to weigh in. Congressman Zeldin, are you surprised that we kind of stiffed Israel on this? Because this is the same administration that decided Israel's great enemy in the Middle East, Iran, should be our friend?
Well, we should be surprised, but, over the course of the last few months and weeks, there was this talk about possibly between the election and the next administration taking over that President Obama might not use our veto authority at the UN. This resolution that was passed yesterday is an anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic resolution. President Obama is colluding with a Hamas-Abbas pro-Palestinian effort to essentially ethnically cleanse eastern Jerusalem and Judea-Samaria region. So a lot of most Americans, most of Congress, even a lot of the Democratic Party, it's just there's a revolt. It's not the will of the people for President Obama.
I know you disagree with the president, but those are strong words. An anti-Semitic resolution?
But you're essentially ethnically cleansing an area. This is Hanukkah starts this evening.
Yeah.
And the story of the Maccabees is they were living, fighting, praying, working in an area that this UN resolution is saying that Jews aren't going to be able to settle.
Yeah.
So
it says also Jews can't pray at the Western Wall.
It's in boycotting economic products that might be manufactured there. This is some people on the left are saying that these settlements are illegal, and that's just not true. They are misinterpreting UN resolutions, Geneva Conventions. They're trying to interpret in a way, playing on the fact that a lot of people don't know all of the details of all these resolutions and conventions. Playing on that fact, they're trying to spin this in a way as if this was already illegal. No, it was actually the resolution yesterday that for the first time they're making that statement.
So what does this mean going forward? Because obviously President-elect Donald Trump is in just a matter of weeks. He's voiced his opinion, obviously very upset about this, saying he's going to work with Benjamin Netanyahu moving forward, and this will be a new chapter. But the vote was already cast yesterday. What does that mean going forward? Is this something that could be changed? Does this change policy from here? How are you thinking about it?
Well, we're going to have to clean up a lot of damage, and it should be noted that President Obama still has just less than 4 weeks left in office, so it's possible that he might do something else, whether it's domestic or foreign policy, that says further back. I don't believe that we should be funding the Palestinian Authority. We should not be funding any efforts to implement a resolution like this. It should be further noted, the Palestinian Authority, they financially reward families for being imprisoned for terrorizing innocent Israelis.
Final point, because we've got 30 seconds, on talking about funding. Donald Trump tweeted yesterday, there's going to be a new sheriff in town on January 20th. Do you think, finally, you hear this from some of your Republican colleagues like Lindsey Graham, that there might be an effort that is actually successful this time to cut off U.S. funds to the United Nations?
Very likely the support is growing. There was always some support. I would say now there's even more support. So that's a growing possibility with the United Nations acting in a way against our allies, our strongest allies, Israel.
Nikki Haley's going to have a lot on her plate.
Absolutely.
When she gets into that role.
Congressman Lee Zeldin, happy Hanukkah. Starts tonight, as you said.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Appreciate you coming in.
Fox News headlines 24/7, Channel 115.
Trump this morning is sparking fears of a new nuclear arms race with just 140 characters.
Making policy over Twitter is hugely disruptive for everybody.
He takes on this vital and complicated and consequential policy issue, nuclear proliferation, in a tweet.
When we're in a situation where people around the world are trying to figure out where President Trump is going to take us, or President-elect Trump is going to take us, the fact that they have to watch his Twitter feed to figure that out is concerning.
All right, so if you're trying to figure out what that montage was the media outrage over different things when it comes to President-elect Donald Trump. I remember we were here the weekend that he had the call with the Taiwanese president, and the mainstream media went ballistic, saying that this was going to change our policy with China as we know it. This is a tweet saying the United States must greatly strengthen and expand its nuclear capability until such times as the world comes to its sensing regarding nukes. So this is what he sent out. Was it yesterday?
And the question is the media overreacting, though? A Fox News strategic analyst, Colonel Ralph Peters, joins us now. Merry Christmas. Thanks for joining us.
Merry
what do you
Christmas.
think?
Happy Hanukkah.
Yeah, great to see you. What do you think about the president-elect using this relatively new social media tool to put out statements on major policies?
Well, it's clearly a disruptive influence, and we'll have to see in the long term how it works. But what astonishes me is the extravagant hypocrisy of the American left. Under President Obama's non-leadership, his passivity, we've seen 500,000 dead in Syria alone, the Middle East and North Africa aflame, American influence has collapsed, and now they're worried that Trump might rebuild our nuclear arsenal. Well, hey, guess what? It's deteriorated to the point that President Obama already started rebuilding it. And Trump's tweets this week about his comment about a new arms race, that was in response to Vladimir Putin's ill-advised comment earlier this week that Russia would develop weapons that would negate the U.S. nuclear arsenal. Well, Trump was simply saying, okay, Vlad, bring it on, because Putin can't, there's not going to be an arms race because Putin's broke.
Well, Colonel Peters, you add an important bit of context there, that part of it was the president-elect reacting to President Putin. However, when you say that President-elect Trump is only talking about rebuilding the nuclear arsenal, didn't he go further, though, by saying expand our capabilities? Isn't that what alarmed people?
Well, I think, what does expand mean? I hate to go Clinton on you. If you're expanding the capabilities of individual systems, that's modernization. If you're expanding numbers of nuke warheads, that's something different. But we're not going to do that. We don't need to do that. Russia's not going to do that. Look, we've been putting patches on the elbows and sleeves of our nuclear systems, our nuclear triad, for more than a generation. Now it's time for a new outfit. And there's just no, again, even Obama recognized that we need to modernize our nukes. Because the paradox is that as monstrous as nuclear weapons are, they have kept the peace in Europe and the world for almost, for more than 2 generations. And the more terrible they are, the less likely they are to be used. So the left will never deal with that.
Colonel Peters, you did mention the disruptive nature of these Trump tweets. Is it really such a bad thing if America's adversaries don't know what we're going to do? And also, isn't that something that Trump said constantly during the campaign? I don't want anybody to know what I'm going to do.
Well, certainly an element of uncertainty on the part of our adversaries is good. I don't like the uncertainty on the part of our allies. That's something the Trump team needs to work on. We need to make sure that everyone in NATO knows that we support NATO. Everyone in the free world needs to know that we support freedom. And my one concern about President Trump's policies has been what appeared to be coziness with Vladimir Putin. Now, hopefully, we're seeing signs of that being over and done with, because clearly, while China is our competitor, Russia is our enemy, not because we want it, because Vladimir Putin views us as implacably bad.
Well, you mentioned uncertainty of other nations. I'm sure Israel's waking up this morning feeling some of that way. Good to have you here this morning, though.
Meanwhile, coming up, he's convicted of murdering 2 FBI
video that we played when I graduated from high school.
Yeah,
proud of
But you know what?
You have graduated. Okay.
I have graduated.
Have you? That's good to know. But, we talk about family traditions, and I think one that so many people can relate to is running down the stairs or running out to see what Santa got. And you wait as a child in your pajamas, and then the moment that your parents give the green light, I mean, it's just...
Well, we've been asking our viewers, and they've been engaging on this on social media, and Jim emails, I have a really big family. We all converge on the weekend in Alton, Illinois for a huge family gathering. We have a big dinner. And then we have a family talent show.
That's a great idea.
The
I love
Obamas
that.
do that in Hawaii.
That's a great idea. And Greg emailed us this one. In the Rowe household, we hide a pickle ornament in the tree, and our adult children search for that pickle. The one who finds it gets an additional gift.
John tweeted us to say each ornament has a story written on the box that we read to the kids as that ornament is put on the tree. How fun is that?
You've got to have traditions. I love that, racing to the pickle, and whoever gets it gets another gift.
Well, and the Huntsmans have a lot of traditions, and we're going to get a little glimpse inside that in a few moments.
So you spent a lot of time in Hawaii covering
President Obama. Yeah, they do a talent show. I think it's on New Year's Eve, if not Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve. The Obamas do that, and each family member needs to bring a special talent. That's kind of a fun idea, especially when you've got kids, to have somebody who's going to sing or dance or do some goofy skit. Because when you see those home videos, it's fun to look back. It's great.
Isn't it fun to look back now, Peter?
It is fun.
For all these years?
It is fun, and we'll always have that. So
Always
thanks
have
to my
that.
dad
And you're
for
still running
bringing-
downstairs to see what Santa brought you.
as fast as possible.
And next hour, the Huntsman's family karaoke, maybe?
I know. I'm one of 7 kids, and so we went home, Fox and Friends, and we're going to show that a little later on in the show with what our traditions are. And I will tell you, it is chaos. You've got dogs, you've got kids, you've got nachos, you've got cookies and music playing, but it's a great time, and it's just being with family, which is so much fun.
All right, so that is a great segment that you guys don't want to miss. This one is going to have you thinking, scratching your head. There is a country, New Zealand, that wants you to ask your kid if it's okay with them before you have them go and sit on Santa's lap at the mall or wherever else you see Santa.
Basically,
This isn't a joke.
Unless you get permission first, your kids can consent. They're going to have trust issues. And this is going to be a problem. And this is Santa. Let's just have a little fun.
So your 2-year-old child needs to get, I'm just struggling to wrap my head.
How does a kid know?
I'm struggling to wrap my head around this. But do you guys remember the days when you would go sit on Santa's lap and it was free of charge? And you would go to the mall and it was sort of this event for the family. Now you actually have to pay to do all this stuff.
Oh, so you should just ask your kid, is it okay if I spend $19 that I'm going to take out of your college fund for this photo that you'll have forever? No, everything doesn't have to be upended around Christmas.
It should just be a happy time. You know, we 2 weekends ago, we had people send in their photos of their kids sitting on Santa's lap. It was so funny because there was such a difference between the age. So if you're 1 year old, 2 years old, you're just sobbing. You know, you're so freaked out about Santa.
But everybody's got that picture, and most people turn out okay.
See, here's one of them. But then you turn 3 years old, and all of a sudden, it's great.
Did somebody grow up and have a problem and say, you know what, Mom and Dad, it's because you made me sit on Santa's lap?
I just thought that photo of Peter when he was 19 on Santa's lap, I just thought it was odd. I don't know.
And 6 feet tall.
I wanted another air hockey table.
All right, well, keep sending us your traditions and photos of Santa. We just love this coming in all morning. We do have some other headlines to get to this morning, starting with this. Russian President Vladimir Putin, Hillary Clinton, and the Democrats. Don't be sore losers. Putin then calling out the White House and Dem leaders for blaming their election loss on Russian hackers. President-elect Donald Trump agreeing on Twitter, saying, quote, Vladimir Putin said today about Hillary and Dems, in my opinion, it is humiliating. One must be able to lose with dignity. So true. Then there's this controversy on campus. American University in Washington, D.C. joining in a cop killer's clemency campaign by installing a statue of Leonard Peltier on campus property. The Native American activist was convicted of murdering 2 FBI agents back in 1977, and the statue is meant to raise awareness for his pardon request. Critics are calling it a disgrace that the school would champion.
Muslims entering the United States after this week's terror attack in Berlin. Is his strategy necessary to defeat terror? Joining us now for a fair and balanced debate is attorney Cheyenne Alahi, the author of Standing Alone, An American Woman's Struggle for the Soul of Islam. Asra Nomani, thank you both for joining us.
Hi, how are you?
So, Cheyenne, first to you, you had told our producers that you think there would be too many constitutional problems with a ban on Muslims entering the country from certain terror hotspots. But where in the Constitution does it say that you can't vet people from places that are really dangerous in the world who might want to hurt us?
Sure, banning is not vetting. You're talking about banning Muslims. He didn't say vetting. Vetting is completely fair, and we should scrutinize everybody.
This week?
President-elect Trump said that he's going ahead. That's what your topic is. So let me talk about that. The pathology of President-elect Trump is to knee-jerk react to everything that happens in the world, right? Then he backtracks. He still hasn't given an actual policy on how he's going to go about this ban because it's not feasible. For any policy to work, it needs to be constitutional, politically acceptable, and basically has to be implementable, right? Someone has to implement it. How are you going to ban all Muslims? And if someone comes to the embassy and says, I'm not a Muslim, are you going to let them in? I mean, it's just not a workable situation. I think President-elect Trump has no idea what he's talking about.
My understanding of what the president-elect said this week was that he thinks that he's been 100% right about everything that he's said so far, but he did not call for a ban on Muslims this week from my perspective down at Mar-a-Lago covering him.
No, he actually said that. He actually said that. He was asked the question, hey, are you going to go ahead with the ban on Muslims? And he said, yes, I've been 100% right, and you know that I've been talking about that, and we're going to do that. I'm paraphrasing him, but that's exactly what he said.
Okay. Asra, question for you. Do you think that, what would be more powerful? The actual imposition of this ban on Muslims coming from a certain part of the world, or just leaving it out there that that is a possibility, that that could be something that's coming?
Well, the misrepresentation we just heard and the hyperbole is emblematic of sort of this Chicken Little syndrome that we've had from so many people in our Muslim community, where
so are you saying he did not say that?
They take what we need as very clear instructions. I don't think you need to be rude to me by interrupting me.
No,
Thank
I'm
you
asking.
So much.
You just made your point, China.
What we're hearing too with this kind of interruption is exactly what we experience in our community.
But you're lying
when
on
we
behalf
try
of
to
the
stand up.
One at a time,
When
please.
we try to stand up as Muslims for the kind of clear policies that we need against extremism, what we hear from our Muslim community is exactly what your viewers are listening to right now: misrepresentation
you're for
and
a
a
ban on
deflection.
Muslims. Are you for a ban
and
on
so
Muslims?
what we need to do, what we need to clearly do, is stand up to the extremist interpretation of Islam and anybody who practices it. And so we need to protect our borders. And the clearest thing that I see from the Trump administration is that they can identify very explicitly the fact that we have a battle of our generation right now that is ideological. And I find that very refreshing. And what President-elect Trump said is that we are going to have a vetting process. Kellyanne Conway has come out. Kellyanne Conway has come out very clearly. Stop interrupting me. Kellyanne Conway has come out very clearly saying she has come out very clearly saying that it's not going to be a ban on all Muslims, and there is going to be a very clear instruction.
If we are going to talk about what the president-elect said 2 days ago, the president-elect was asked if the attack in Berlin had him rethinking possibly adding a ban on Muslims entering the country from certain places. And all that he said was that he thinks he has been 100% right about everything so far. Just want to make sure that the record is straight.
What he was talking about was terrorism.
Okay, thank you both. Coming up next, a parting shot from President Obama snubbing our biggest ally, Israel, at the United Nations. This morning, the president-elect has a promise.
Good morning. It is Saturday, December 24th. Merry Christmas Eve, everyone. A parting shot from President Obama snubbing our biggest ally, Israel, at the United Nations, and the backlash is mounting this morning.
And I am just beyond in a seething rage over what this administration has done in its last days.
It's what both sides are saying this morning, and the new promise from President-elect Donald Trump.
Then Vladimir Putin calls the Dems sore losers, and the left is even more outraged after Donald Trump agrees. But what does our friend Juan Williams think? He's going to join us live just ahead.
And on this Christmas Eve, one young girl is taking the world by storm. Hallelujah indeed. But that's not all. The incredible story behind this powerful performer. This Christmas Eve is better with friends.
Oh, got run over by a reindeer walking home from our house Christmas Eve. You can say there's no such thing as Santa.
All right, we apologize because now that we're playing this first thing this morning, it's going to be stuck in your head all day long.
I am not apologizing for that.
We all love the song, but later on in the show, we have Dr. Elmo on, who originally sang this song, and he sings it live here in our studio in all the Christmas spirit. It is something you can't miss.
We got Santa Claus, we got Dr. Elmo.
It's a big show today. We've got Peter Doocy's home Christmas videos. And I went home with my family as well that we're going to play this hour. So everyone is sending in their Christmas traditions, things that are unique and fun to them. So keep sending us what you all do that's unique
Christmas
to you. We haven't even heard from you. What do you do that's unique?
You know, I'm going to have a photo of me getting a little Superman thing for Christmas as a kid. I don't even know. I was like 7. So that you got to stay tuned for that.
Okay, that's a tease.
Okay, that is a tease. I mean, I wasn't like screaming over a hockey thing or whatever, but.
Look, when you're a kid and you want an air hockey table, and then you don't know how Santa got it around a very tight corner into the basement.
Yeah. Well, your dad's pretty crafty. I mean, Santa's really crafty.
What?
Santa's really crafty. We've got some headlines too.
All right, we do have some other headlines to get to this morning, though, starting with a Fox News alert, and police Making 3 new arrests linked to the Berlin Christmas market terrorist attack. Tunisia's Interior Ministry says Anis Amri's nephew and 2 others are taken into custody, suspected of being a part of the same extremist network. Amri is suspected of driving a truck into a large crowd at a Christmas market in Berlin on Monday, killing 12 people, injuring dozens more. Investigators believe Amri sent his nephew money to join him in Europe, but it remains unclear whether the suspects helped him flee Berlin. He was shot dead by Italian police yesterday in Milan. We'll keep you updated on that story. And to another Fox News alert and an outpouring of support this morning for actress Carrie Fisher, best known as Princess Leia in Star Wars, after suffering a cardiac event on an LA-bound flight.
Somebody has to save our skins.
We all love her. Well, Fisher's family saying the 60-year-old star is in intensive care at an LA hospital. Friends and co-stars are reacting to the sad news. Star Wars and Game of Thrones star Gwendolyn Christie tweeting, Carrie Fisher, the whole world is sending you so much love, sending you the universe's most powerful force. Thoughts with her this morning. And there's this story, a homegrown terrorist arrested after pledging support to ISIS. Derek Thompson, you can see him there, reportedly trying to buy a gun and even discussing plans to carry out a lone wolf attack in Arizona. Phoenix authorities saying they've been watching the 30-year-old Thompson for over 2 years now. Documents show he even researched midnight mass and which guns were. Love that.
That's really terrific.
Let's toss out to Rick for some weather. Oh, Rick.
Rick,
What are you doing? He's hiding over in the weather center.
Yeah, I'm just over here making some maps.
All right. Maybe we'll go to you later.
Okay, well, you know what? We're going to give you a little time to figure it out if you want.
Yeah, Rick's behind the
he's
curtain
got it.
there.
Okay.
I'm right over here.
Don't mind the guy behind the curtain there.
Yeah. Wow. I had no idea.
No big deal, buddy.
You know what? People always want to know, Rick, behind the scenes of television. This is what it's like.
So right behind this wall, right here, is where I'm just
He was
standing there. I was like drinking something, eating some of that Santa's candy, and making a map.
Reindeer crackle?
Reindeer crack is what they called it. That might make sense now. All right, here you go. It was big storm for tomorrow across the Central Plains. Snow across parts of the Dakotas. A blizzard warning in effect. I think we'll see winds maybe 40 to 50 miles an hour along with that snow. So whiteout conditions, dangerous. Heading to grandmother's house tomorrow. Some severe weather also across parts of the Central Plains, but really warm down across the south. In fact, not just the south. 62 for high in Kansas City. Currently, you're 25, but get ready for this warm air to start moving up in there, and that's where we might even see that severe weather. Aside from that, for today, we've got some storms across parts of the Tennessee Valley. Those are not going to be that bad, though. They will be gone by this afternoon, and people can do some shopping. There you go. I'll go back around behind
on the
wall.
fly, I gotta say.
Thank you. I had no idea, but
I give it the chocolate candy.
Yeah, I'm full. I feel like it's Christmas Day right now. Like after you've had Christmas dinner, just from the Santa candy.
It's good, isn't it?
There you go. I know. All right.
All right.
Take it
Thank
away.
you, Rick.
In a Christmas Eve clash, President Obama on the way out the door, and basically a big snub to Israel. And don't take it from us. I mean, the New York Daily News, which has been very supportive of President Obama, Hillary Clinton during the campaign, Obama shafts Israel. That's their lead headline today. Before the UN, basically this UN resolution that the U.S. could have vetoed, and it's been longstanding U.S. policy, Democratic and Republican presidents, that that Israel should stop the settlements. But it's also been longstanding U.S. policy, Democrats and Republicans, to make sure that you veto these resolutions, block these anti-Israel resolutions, which the U.S. could have easily done before the Security Council, but instead the U.S. abstained, allowing this to go forward. And among other things, it basically makes it illegal for Jews to pray at the Western Wall.
And this is something that only President Obama had the power to veto or not to veto, and obviously he made that decision yesterday. People are up in arms today, including a number of Democrats, by the way, who are angry at this decision. We had Governor Mike Huckabee on this morning. He said this is basically President Obama giving the big middle finger as he's walking out the door. And Charles Krauthammer, who I always try to listen to in these events, and he was speaking last night. Here's what he said he said this is going to be a very tough thing to overcome. overturned. Let's take it. Oh, we don't have that sound, but he was just saying basically what President Obama did was throw out a bunch of landmines. They're going to be really tough for this incoming administration.
Right. Because if Hillary Clinton had been elected, Peter, there's no way that President Obama would have snubbed Israel like this, because he'd want to set the table to have a new day between President-elect Hillary Clinton and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Instead, he's a little stink bomb for Donald Trump.
Well, but also, if a Democrat was in office, then they would remember, wait a second, there are a lot of Democrats that support Israel. We might need them 4 years from now when President Hillary Clinton would be up for re-election. But so you do wonder how much of this is just about making a mess for the next president, Donald Trump. But you got, and Donald Trump did tweet yesterday, as to the UN, things will be different after January 20th. But you've got Ben Rhodes, the White House Deputy National Security Advisor now. He's out there, and again, he is somebody who had to apologize to a lot of people for a New York Times, I believe it was a
New York Times Magazine piece where he said, I set up this fake narrative, basically.
But he set up a fake narrative about the Iran deal, which was something else that the Israelis were really steamed about. So listen to what he said about about Trump doing all this and how he thinks that it's not right because there should just be one president at a time.
On the president-elect, the first thing I'd just say is that there's one president at a time. President Obama is the president of the United States until January 20th. And, we are taking this action, of course, as a U.S. policy. And as I also said, this has been long-standing bipartisan U.S. policy to oppose this type of settlement activity going forward.
So, to talk about one president at a time, you wonder how much of that is just because the president-elect is getting all the attention for anything domestic. He's making deals with Carrier and Boeing and Lockheed. And then international, he tweets about the nuclear arsenal or about Russia. And all of a sudden, everybody talks about that. Nobody has any idea what the president is doing unless he breaks decades of diplomatic protocol. And the other thing that is so surprising is that this is what Ben Rhodes is getting upset about, because they know that stuff is going to change. President-elect Trump said that he was going to undo basically every executive order that the president has put in place.
But number one, what if Ben Rhodes was more exercised about doing something about the slaughter in Syria in President Obama's final days, number one? And number two, what about the hypocrisy? The mainstream media freaked out when Donald Trump took a phone call from the president of Taiwan. Oh, this is not diplomatic niceties. And now President Obama snubs Israel, according to Democratic-leaning newspapers and Democratic senators like Chuck Schumer, not according to Republicans. And mainstream media is like, oh, okay, that's fine.
Well, this is a tough one to criticize President-elect Trump on, because he's tweeting again about another victory. He talks about cutting costs and bringing more jobs back to the U.S. In this case, Lockheed Martin, the CEO, she's committing to driving down the costs. This is what Trump tweeted yesterday or Thursday after the meeting that he had with the CEO. Says, based on the tremendous costs and cost overruns of the Lockheed Martin F-35, I've asked Boeing to price out a comparable F-18 Super Hornet. And this is a statement that then was released from the Lockheed Martin CEO, Marilyn Husson, who said, I had a very good conversation with President-elect Trump this afternoon and assured him that I've heard his message loud and clear about reducing the cost of the F-35. I give him personal commitment to drive the cost down aggressively. This is one of those things where you think, if people just had conversations, if they just meet in person and say, you know what, this doesn't make a lot of sense. We've got to bring this cost down. To which the CEO then says, you know what, you're probably right about that. Let me see what I can do.
Well, sure, but why did it take some tweets for them to say, we're going to be more careful with taxpayer money? They should have been more careful with taxpayer money from the first day, whether it's a Democratic or Republican.
You know why it took some tweets? Because their stock tanked when the president-elect said that he was going to give Boeing a chance instead. Boeing, who we had a very nice meeting with, the Boeing guy said, yeah, you know what, we're going to go and make Air Force One for cheaper, and we can do the F-35's component for cheaper. But also, the F-35 is 20%, makes 20% of all the revenue for Lockheed Martin. So if that goes away, that CEO would be in really big trouble. And this is, Donald Trump wrote a book the year I was born, The Art of the Deal. It's completely different now. He's got Twitter. Twitter wasn't around in 1987. Now all he has to do, hey, Boeing, you're in trouble.
But you know what? When it comes to taxpayer money,
then they go down to Florida and say, okay, we're sorry.
I mean, when it comes to taxpayer money, this is a big deal.
Absolutely.
And this is one of
this is billions of dollars, billions and billions. This is not chump change.
And if there's one thing that Mr. Trump understands, it's the business world. And he's saying, when I come in there, It's going to be different.
Yeah.
It's going to be a new chapter, whether it is dealing with our ally Israel, or if it's dealing with.
What about
with
Russia? We've heard all this about Russian interference in the election. Now, post-election, Vladimir Putin calling Democrats sore losers. And what's interesting is that the left is getting upset about this, even more outraged about it, and basically saying, because he called them sore losers, and Donald Trump is saying, yeah, it's not so bad, that it's true, and people are freaking out.
Yes,
about
we're
it.
going to have Juan Williams on the show to get a little bit of reaction to what he thinks about all of that.
And that's not all. You want to know what Christmas is like at the Huntsman house? Well,
oh boy.
Abby took us home for the holidays, and you're going to see it next.
But first,
Vladimir Putin sending a strong message to Hillary Clinton and other Democrats yesterday: don't be sore losers.
Yep, the Russian president slammed White House leaders for blaming their loss on Russian hackers during his annual press conference. President-elect Donald Trump agreeing on Twitter, writing this. Vladimir Putin said today about Hillary and Dems, in my opinion, it is humiliating. One must be able to lose with dignity. That is so true.
Here to weigh in is co-host of The Five, our buddy Juan Williams. Good morning. Merry Christmas, Juan.
Good morning. Merry Christmas to you and Ed, Abby. It's a delight to be with the two of you, especially you, Ed. You know what? For friends, you got to say a special Merry Christmas.
That's right. You're one of my dearest friends. So I'm glad you're here today. Yeah, we're very
so
close.
I have no doubt you've got some thoughts on this tweet yesterday from President-elect Donald Trump.
Well, I really liked the end of it. You didn't show this, but he said, that's fine what Mr. Putin had to say, but he hopes that they can have some comedy and don't have to go. And here I'm paraphrasing, if not quoting, we don't have to take an alternate path. And that would be more towards the idea of a nuclear arms race or some conflict between Russia and the United States. But Abby, overall, being the Christmas season, I'm kind of reminded of like the Grinch or Ebenezer Scrooge turning to the child that got coal under the Christmas tree. In this case, the Democrats having been devastated in the election and saying, oh, why don't you just be more dignified about getting the coal, about losing? You're a sore loser. I thought, boy, that really was putting insult to injury.
I do have to ask this, though, because when you talk about, our relationship with Russia and sort of this new chapter with President-elect Donald Trump going in there, it seems like every presidency past, the American people have allowed them to press the reset button, let them see what they can do. It doesn't seem like as many people are allowing, at least at this point early on, for President-elect Donald Trump to do that, just to at least see what he can do, to press that reset button. Why are people not willing to just give him the benefit of the doubt here?
Well, I think obviously all the events of the campaign season color our view of the relationship between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, and the idea that they've had a bromance and that they've praised each other leads people to really kind of cast a quizzical eye at what is the reality of that relationship, and is it the case that Putin wanted Trump to win because he believes that somehow that's going to help the former Soviet Union, Russia, regain some of its power and influence in the world. There are many Americans, including President Obama, who said recently that Ronald Reagan would be rolling over in his grave to see so many Republicans and so many Americans now open to the idea of doing business with Putin. And yesterday, Putin had a very intriguing response, Abby. He said, he thinks that Democrats should realize that Franklin Roosevelt would be rolling over in his grave to see them suffer so many defeats in the recent election.
Well, and on that point about Democrats, Juan, as a Democrat, what do you think about, Abby raised that point about giving each president a fresh start, even if there are raw feelings about the past election. You had this guy getting on a JetBlue flight a couple of days ago and accosting Ivanka Trump and her small children sitting right there. And then now you have these Hollywood stars saying they're going to do an alternative event. And it's a free country. They can do whatever they want. But they want to try to counter Donald Trump's inaugural ceremony. They want to boycott anybody performing at his inaugural. Why can't the man have a day?
Hey, I think he should have more than a day. And as a Democrat, I think I am even more of an American. And you've got to say he's our president. So I didn't vote for Donald Trump. No surprise. But you know what? I have to hope for Donald Trump's success because I want my country, I want my family in this Christmas Eve to do well, Ed. I think all of us want success for our country.
Juan, I like that message. We'll leave it there. You're not going to get coal for Christmas. I have a feeling.
Oh, you're a sweetheart, Abby. Thank you.
Right, Merry Christmas to you and Delise.
Thanks,
Merry
Juan.
Christmas,
good to
guys.
see you.
Bye, Ed.
Bye-bye. Just when you thought she was gone for good, Jill Stein is back.
Really?
And she's got a bone to pick with the DOJ.
But up next, what is Christmas like in my house?